Hey, everybody, welcome to Around the Campfire. I am here today with Matt Karge, my partner at Northwoods in the content management space. And we're here today to talk to you about content management, how to select one. And we want to get right into it. So, Matt and I have been leading people in content management selections for many, many years, 15, 20 years. And today we are here to give you some insider secrets, a little inside baseball as to what really happens behind the scene. We're hoping that we can offer some insights that are going to help you become better consumers of content management systems. So we want to start out right at the very beginning. Matt, I'm going to pretend we're buying a content management system, but instead of buying a content management system, which is the audience we're trying to talk to today, is people that are looking for a CMS. Right. And if you are a tiny little, you have 5 pages or 10 pages of your website, this probably isn't for you. If you are part of a mega corporation, General Motors is listening right now, give us a call. But you probably have 50 people on staff that are in charge of your website, and you probably aren't going to get a whole lot of benefit out today. But for everybody else sitting in the middle, this is a conversation for you. How do you become a better consumer and buyer of a new content management system or replacement one, or maybe your first one? All right, let's pretend we are buying an airplane today, Matt.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I just thought I'd throw you for a loop right away.
All right. Sounds good.
All right. So here's my criteria for now. I'm going to pretend I'm a typical content management buyer, but instead I'm going to buy an airplane. Matt, I need an airplane that goes from New York to California. So it's got to have pretty long range, and I got to be able to carry 40 people because, every once in a while I want to fly my whole
party.
company. Hey, party somewhere. Maybe Hawaii once in a while. All right. But, every once in a while, I like going up to Canada, going fishing. And so
sure.
I need some pontoons on this thing too, and and I forgot to mention, I don't have an airport, but I do have a big parking lot. So I'm thinking that we could probably just if it could take off vertically, that would be really, is that a problem? And I'm a little concerned. I'm a little worried about Canada right now. They've been talking about invading us. And so I need this thing to be armed with missiles so we can shoot them down. So what do you got? Do you have an airplane that?
Well, I'm sure we can figure something out for you. Yeah, that sounds like quite the need that you have there. But as you're thinking about all those external things, what about all the internal things? Like, what kind of seats do you want? Do you want leather seats? Do you have a pilot, or do you need to learn how to fly this thing?
You mean somebody has to fly these things?
Yeah. How about?
I thought Elon figured this all out. I thought he had.
You even know how to fly a plane? That's I think a significant question to ask. I see where you're going along the lines with this whole analogy.
So we get queries all of the time for people wanting to buy a content management system, and they come up with a mishmash of requirements, kind of like this. That are mutually exclusive. And so I think we want to share a bunch of secrets today. I think there's 7 or so on our list. But the first one is right along lines with this airplane analogy is find somebody who knows what they're talking about to be your consultant, somebody that understands content management systems. And that might be an employee. It might be an outside consultant that you pay. It might be a trusted vendor partner, somebody like Northwoods. We hope we could be that for you. But we understand that if you're buying that content management system from us, from a Northwoods type vendor, you might not necessarily want to trust them with advice. And nonetheless, it is something we do about half the time. And so step 1 is finding somebody that you know how to do. How many, in your experience, Matt, how many clients come in with somebody that knows what they're talking about with the content management system? How often does this happen?
That's a tough question because it does vary quite a bit. But for the most part, I would say there might be somebody within the team that has some understanding, but there's still a lot of not understanding the full picture. So maybe you have someone who's worked with a platform before specifically, or maybe someone who writes content, or you have somebody who has worked with a big product catalog in the past or things like that. It's quite rare to actually find someone who knows everything about the CMS. And that's where, with the first step that you're talking about, finding somebody who can, usually going the vendor route is really important because that vendor typically has multiple people that do different things that can all provide that you would need to help you select that CMS. So not only do you have a content person and a catalog person, but you've got someone who understands specific coding that might be needed, or some of the legal sort of things like a consent management, all of those different pieces are important to understanding what platform to use and how that platform might work with other tools to
Yeah.
give you the best.
So finding some level of expertise at some point in time, early on, with, as you mentioned, the data needs, the legal needs, the copy needs, the maintenance needs, the technical needs. These are all good, but it's rare for anybody to approach us that has all that in one package. So you need to find
Not at
somebody
all.
that can do that.
And to take your airplane analogy, let's take off with that a little bit. It's the equivalent of somebody who just wants a plane, but they need that mechanic, they need the pilot, they need the person who can make the travel plans. There's all those elements, and maybe that's a little bit easier to understand for a marketer that just because maybe you have worked in a website in the past, selecting a new platform to run your website in the future is a completely different ballgame than I'm mixing analogies. It's a completely different thing because it's a completely different process to select a platform to do all the things that you're used to doing. And so that's where this first step is so important of really talking to someone who does understand what is important, what is needed to help walk you through that process. And that's for me,
Yep.
if you got someone on the team, great, but chances are you don't. And I feel pretty strongly about that you really usually don't have someone on your team that can help you.
Usually don't, and it's an important part. If you want to be successful or even have a chance of this website launching on time, on budget, find somebody to know it. So we have created a blog, and actually there's a blog and a white paper that one's a little bit more crystallized. Here's the blog. And this, I think, is over on our Northwoods website, 5 Secrets of Selecting the Best Web Content Management System. So you can go and find that on NWS Digital. And on the bottom over here, in kind of a summary form, are a number of secrets. We've also written a white paper, which you can find on our Titan CMS site. And I'm going to share that one real quick because it's got a little bit more information in it. And so we're going to click over here and share that. So if you look at this white paper, you can get this off of titancms.com. If you go to the website, titancms.com, and I think it'll just pop up automatically for you. But otherwise, there's a link, I think, called CMS Select that you can type. We'll post it in the show notes here in the comments below on the video. So this is a modern guide to selecting a content management system. And there's actually a lot of really good information in here. But down towards the bottom are some of the key points that we wanted to be able to talk about today. All right. So we talked about finding somebody that knows what they're talking about. Step number 1, or step 0, frankly, before you even start.
Good way.
Step number 2, and I'm going to actually do these in a slightly different order, is that you want to be able to come up with a strategy and a user experience as the second step. Before you ever get into picking a vendor, picking a tool, is this consultant, your internal team, whoever's going to be working with you to guide you through this process, needs to make a list of what are your business requirements? What are the things that you're trying to do? What are the goals you want to accomplish? What are the conversions you want to have happen? So UX. And I think, Matt, you had a little bit further along the step, you actually prepare some wireframes. You want to grab the share real quick and show us what wireframe is?
If I can add to what you're saying too, there's this whole boiling down everything what you just said is like, what is the purpose of your website is ultimately what you need to define. And all those individual elements that you were talking about, Pat, help get you to the point where you can create a strategy for your site. And that is, you want to talk about what is a need for your site and what is a want for your site. From a need perspective, if we're trying to sell a widget, and that means we've got to have a catalog of product information. If we're just trying to provide content about what we can offer as a service provider, we want to make sure that our strategy is focusing on that. And once you crystallize the ideas of the needs and wants for your site, then you can get into a step where you can start creating just some general ideas of the overall flow for your site. So continuing the airplane analogy, when I hop on a plane, I get onto the plane, I walk through the door, and the first thing I want to do is just go find my seat and sit down. And that's what your users are going to want to do. They're going to want to just get to your website, figure out where they need to go, and convert. They don't care about how the baggage is added to the plane or how the fuel is added, or if it's 4 jets or 2 jets. They don't care about that stuff. They just care about the getting from point A to point B. And that's important for the website too, where marketers often get muddled into all of the details of how the site works and things like that. But having an understanding of that user experience can help them define all of the other details that they have to figure out. And so the example that I'm showing here is just a high level overview of like the general feel that an organization has on presenting information to their users, which then helps them define the type of functionality that they need on their website.
These
So
are called wireframes?
these are called wireframes, and you don't have to have any fancy product to run this. Obviously, like Northwoods, we have our own a tool that we use that's through Adobe and stuff like that. But I've had clients create these using Canva or even PowerPoint. It doesn't have to be super formal or fancy or anything. It's essentially that drawing that just gives a general overview of what you want to accomplish on the various pieces of the various important pieces of your website. So in this case, like for these examples here, we've got a page that shows multiple products that leads into individual type product pages and what information aligns with that. So this is a very heavy product catalog specific sort of website. And so having an overall understanding of how that data is presented and how a user can see everything and essentially file themselves down into a specific spot to convert is extremely important, because that tells the vendor who's building the website on a new CMS what are the important pieces that are needed for that CMS to run properly.
Yeah. This is going to reveal all sorts of stuff. Yeah, go ahead.
You don't need to have a wireframe that is huge too. If you got a very basic website that is very content heavy, you can also just figure out, well, how should this content lay out? I'm working with a client now that they have a service that they provide, but there's a lot of other ancillary services that can go along with it. And so there's not like a specific product or a widget or anything that goes along with those, but they decided that they wanted to put together a wireframe that really explained how all of these different elements could help support the original service that they're providing. And so a wireframe doesn't have to be massive. It can be pretty small too. But the key is, and the important thing that I'm trying to get out there is just, if you can define the purpose of your site as well as define what you want your user to do, creating some wireframes to help illustrate that is going to significantly improve your ability to pick the right CMS that has the right tools to get the job done for what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, so I'm going to go just an inch sideways over here, because one of the things that we have is, and I'm going to share a different screen over here. Rather than wireframes, sometimes what we get is a spreadsheet like this. So if we can get wireframes, we are way, way ahead of the game. We're going to be, as a vendor, we're going to be much better able to respond to what you are looking for, because it's not vague, it's very specific. And a picture is 1,000 words, literally. When you give me a picture that shows how your catalog, as you were saying, and the details of that catalog, how those pages are going to flow, I am now inferring and implying a million questions. And as a vendor, I can start asking you questions. Sometimes we get these spreadsheets right over here, and there's many different forms of this. And another one, this one received a while ago, but this is not uncommon. Here's a set of business requirements. I'm just going to pick stuff at random. Provide the capability to create and use templates from a library. Okay, let me say right off the get, number 32, there's 800 content management systems out there. All of them can do that. Vendors should allow flexibility for a partner to market partner for any marketing partner for copy. I think 100% of all content management systems can do that. So you're, in some ways, I'm not sure where these questions came from or where this device, maybe this was ChatGPT generated this. I'm not really sure, but it isn't particularly useful to a vendor. And you now have spent a lot of time as a client, a prospect, preparing this spreadsheet. You put and tortured your staff to read through it and double check it. The vendor who has received this, the 20 vendors that you sent this out to, all spent hours and hours and hours filling this all in. And I have I'll bet you $100 that nobody read it, because it's just too dense. There's too much information inside of here. And I could be wrong. And don't get me out of line. And so in a particular case, it didn't really do anything useful, because most vendors, a little insider secret, are going to say yes to just about everything. Because in a lot of cases, the question is so vague. I could spend 10 minits on every single one of these questions trying to figure out, what exactly do you mean? What problem are you trying to solve? I'm not really quite sure. So I'm just going to say yes.
And right, the goal of the vendor is just to get to the next step of
Yep.
the overall
Yep.
selection process. I think
Yep.
something that would be much more helpful, and something that anyone listening to this, if you were, instead of creating this big long list of all the must-haves and stuff along those lines, because as you were saying, Pat, most CMS platforms have the tools to do what you're doing, and if they don't, they have add-ins or
Yep.
plugins or other things. Probably the better way to focus is to look internally and look at your own team's skill set and define what you can and cannot do. And I think that's actually going to be more useful for a vendor, because if you've got a team of 5 people and you four of them are exceptional writers and have great SEO backgrounds, and the fifth one is just the leader who has kind of a jack of all trades sort of thing, that tells me as a vendor that the CMS that I'm going to need to do is, or to provide you, is going to need to have a strong SEO set of tools that you can use because your team is really strong in that. But then I also have to find the other means that are important for your website to provide support to that team. So determining what you can and cannot do actually could provide you much greater answers from a vendor, in the sense that you're opening yourself up a little bit, saying what you can and cannot do, but you're also providing that vendor just a set of ideas and an understanding that, boy, these are the things that we really need help with, and you're going to get just better responses in general
You
from
get
the
better
vendor
response.
and that
Yep.
process. Yeah.
Yep. On these spreadsheets, oftentimes they're going to ask questions. Do you have PCI compliance? Well, it's
Right. Well,
interesting.
are you selling anything on your
Are you
site,
selling
or
anything? And it's PCI is
yeah,
an e-commerce specific requirement. In this particular case, I know this client wasn't thinking about selling anything. So it tells me when I'm as a vendor and I'm reading this thing and I see a question
exactly.
like that, I go, all right, you didn't come up with these questions. Somebody else fed you a list and you're just regurgitating it out there.
Where
Um,
Chat GPT came up with the questions,
right.
and
Yeah.
it's simple to do, but it's not, you're not helping progress the process
You're not. You're
forward.
slowing everything down and generally
Exactly.
wasting time. And what a better solution would be is what Matt just showed you, which is show some wireframes.
Right.
Show us the end product of what you're trying to develop. Because inside of that, I'm going to see, oh, e-commerce, you've got a buy button over here. You're going to need PCI. And as a vendor,
Exactly.
I'm going to provide that information to you without you having to proactively try to prescribe how we're going to provide the solution. And every CMS system is going to approach this with a slightly different angle. And again, many of them can do the same sort of things. So, which brings us back to the next point, which is show, don't tell. So now you've hopefully gotten some sort of user experience, some sort of wireframes or something that gives us an indication of what you want this website to do. That can be vendor agnostic and it can be platform agnostic. You should be able to draw a website up and say, this is the functionality, walk that through with your people, make sure everybody's agreeing on it. And you're working with an independent user experience, a UX wireframe developer, or do it internally. As Matt said, it doesn't have to be anything terribly complex. But the more detail you can provide, the better. So in general. So now you show that to the vendors, and now you say to them, all right, show us how you would produce this website and what it would look like to maintain it, which gets back up to the show, don't tell. So now rather than sending us a spreadsheet, say ask for a demo. Here's some wireframes. Here's what we want to accomplish. They can go take that to their cut up team, their internal team, their template development team, and they can say, what would it take? Now you get all those people on the phone, on the call, on the Zoom call at the same time, and they're going to be able to give you a demo, walking you through. And that's where your confidence should start to rise. You should be hearing stories of when we did this for other people just like you. Here's how we accomplished it. Here's a couple examples. Here's what that looks like. Here's how that got maintained inside of the system. Here's what your day-to-day steps would be. Here's how you're going to import data from your external ERP systems or spreadsheets, wherever you keep your data. That's where that's all going to come from. Show me, don't tell me. And so step number one is on this sheet. I'm talking about slightly different order. Find a good consultant, develop a good user experience, come up with your strategy, and then start getting demos. Evaluate the team behind the tool. Now, if you're having a good demo, in theory, if you show them wireframes, they're going to bring on the front end developers, the back end developers, the UX people. They're all going to be on that call, and you're going to get a sense for who you're going to be working with. So that's where you're going to have a sense of what that team is going to look like.
And that's where the value of having that internal inspection of what you can and cannot do, and sharing that with a vendor,
Yep.
is extremely important, because then the vendor should be able to share that team with you to show you how they're fulfilling the need that exists within your own internal team.
Then you are looking now, we're getting into the meat. Hopefully you've narrowed it down to some teams that you resonate with some tools that look reasonably easy to adapt. You have to realize that getting a content management system of any substance for size companies, medium to large, and even small, to some degree, it's kind of like getting married. You're going to fall in love and see everything, and you're going to have a honeymoon period where everything is beautiful, and then reality is they don't put the cap on the toothpaste every night, and you're going to figure that out. And they just put the toilet paper in so the things to the wall, not to the outside. It's just crazy. But everybody, they're accomplishing it the same. They're accomplishing the same tasks. They're just doing it slightly different. And you're going to get used to that. So whatever content management system you have, whether we use WordPress and Titan CMS here at Northwoods, but we have worked with Sitecore and SharePoint and Joomla. We've worked with all sorts of different things. All of them kind of do the same thing. They all just approach it differently. And you got to get used to. Got to get used to that spouse that you got married to, and there are little quirks, and once you get good at it, you're gonna be there. So it should be intuitive and flexible. Hopefully you see that right out of the gate. One of the things that people ask for is drag and drop editing, and there's a pro and a con to that. And I'm going to speak to the con. I'll let you, Matt, you can speak to the pro. So we'll assign jobs here. But the con to that is that if you want to do anything complex or multiple steps, drag and drop interfaces are going to be your enemy. And if you want simple, I want to drag an image in and drop it into my block and just have it automatically go into the right spots. Yes, really basic type stuff. But people have a delusion, in my opinion, that they can take a complex page and just drag everything all over the place and it's all going to just keep on working. And the answer is that in most cases, it will not. And you're going to make a big mess. Matt.
Yeah, I would completely disagree with you, depending on the platform. So there are definitely levels of what you can and cannot do. And I agree with you. If the order of complexity definitely affects the drag and drop functionality and the ease of it. There are workarounds that if you're working with the right flexible tool and the right team, so all the other elements that we've been talking about, if you have those other pieces in place, the drag and drop might not be as crazy complex as some might think it would be. And so there's always levels, there's always nuances. And within WordPress itself, you've got so many different types of page builders that you can bolt on top of WordPress itself, which it itself has its own drag and drop editor. And everyone has their own nuances and their own abilities. And some are really easy to use, but can't do anything complicated. And some are really complicated to use, but they're really, they can do all sorts of complicated things, but you almost need a background in development to be able to do it. So the drag and drop feature is definitely from a digital marketer's perspective at an organization, the importance that I think that it is key for them to understand is that drag and drop is really good for a basic page of content where you are just manipulating colors or images or bars or rows, columns, etc. Once you start getting into the more larger implementations where maybe you have catalogs or
incorporating data
of some sort, that is where the whole drag and drop functionality, you kind of want to veer away from that just because of the amount of data that you're typically working with. And that's where other platforms that aren't drag and drop really excel. And so it's just, you've got to figure out ultimately what you want to accomplish with your site. And you might have a mix of drag and drop and less drag and drop, more of a specific field editing sort of approach to managing your content.
All right, last couple points, and then we'll wrap it up. And seamless integration and scalability, the ability for a content management system to talk to and integrate and incorporate data from wherever it is inside the organization is going to be critical. Where do you have your images? Where are your documents? Where is your catalog data going to come from if you have a catalog? If you have robust papers or documentation that you're producing research on a regular basis, where is that going to come from? How is it going to get fed into the system? These integrations with the rise of AI are getting easier. People are building agents to do this. It's not fully ready for prime time in most companies yet. I think many companies are struggling with the complexities of integrating agents into their workflow in the content management system. It is certainly an aspiration. I think it's going to keep getting better and better and better, and it's going to improve rapidly, but it is not there yet. As of what is today, September 3rd, 2025, AI is not fully integrated. I don't want to date ourselves, but that's not fully there. But being able to, on the ability to integrate whatever else you have is going to be an important thing that you want your vendor to be able to talk about. Prioritize security, stability, and support. So what is going to happen once this site is launched? Who's going to take care of it? What happens if you have questions? So you want to be able to find out, what does their help desk look like? What is their support policies? How often does this site go down? Talking to and getting security and stability are going to be things that are less quantitative and more qualitative. You're going to want to talk to references and say, hey, how stable has this site been? What sort of problems have there been? How fast did they, if they find a bug, how fast did they fix it? What is the responsiveness to that? In both cases, the platforms we provide offer that sort of thing. Finally, it's the value, not just the price. So you're buying both a tool and a team. You need to buy both of those together. It's one of the points we make in our blog version of this PDF, is that it's not just the tool, unless you're a mega corporation and you have your own team. You're buying a team, you're buying a tool, and how well does that team know the tool is going to be an important part for your success. Any final thoughts, Matt?
Yeah, 6 and 7 often work together, right? And it's something that, I hate to say it this way, but it's an oversimplification of it. But you essentially, you get what you pay for. And if you go on the real cheap with everything, the chances of everything working seamlessly and working well and staying secure and stable and everything, you're likely going to run into problems. I'm not saying you need to go on the opposite end of the spectrum and spend, thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, but just really analyze everything to make sure that the price that you're paying does actually provide the value that you need from it. And sometimes that costs a little bit more, and that peace of mind is going to do a lot more for your team than just getting by on something that's on the low cost. So it is a delicate type of dance that you got to figure out, well, what is the value of what we're getting out of this? But if you've got the right vendor in place helping you with this entire process, and they're honest about everything. And I like to think that Northwoods is almost too honest sometimes. We tell you everything and why one decision makes more sense than another. And I think that's what you really need out of a vendor, is that honesty. So yeah, those are my thoughts on 6 and 7. It's just, they kind of mesh together, and finding the right vendor is going to help you get through those overall on the process.
All right. Well, we hope you found a couple nuggets today in our Around the Campfire. Thanks, Matt, for joining me here, and we'll see you again soon.